When brilliant lawyers face off against shady cops, things get intense fast. Here's what happens when smart lawyers put dirty cops in their place, starting with a dramatic takedown that left the entire courtroom stunned.
This whole case was fishy, and I have no idea how they... You know what?
Their address on file.
You know what?
The state intends to amend
I'm granting.
and proceed on
I'm rescinding the sentence.
In November 2014, Lisette Gonzalez found herself in serious trouble after being caught drinking beer behind the wheel. In court, Sanford police officer Michael Wagner testified that he personally witnessed her consuming alcohol before taking her into custody. However, when the defense pointed out that no breath or blood tests were conducted, Wagner changed his testimony and admitted that he simply checked a box on the DUI citation indicating that Gonzalez's blood alcohol level was above the legal limit, even though he hadn't conducted any breath or blood test. Officer Wagner's error led to the suspension of Gonzalez's driver license, even though the DUI charge was later dismissed. 2 months later, Gonzalez was pulled over for driving with a suspended license, which was due to the officer's mistake. In court, her attorney made one last attempt to persuade the court.
Your Honor, there's not enough evidence presented for the jury to find the verdict that they did. They didn't do all the field sobriety examinations that should have been. I respectfully ask that this court grant the judgment notwithstanding.
He pointed out that they were in court simply because of Officer Wagner's false report and urged the judge to dismiss the case.
All right. This isn't a purely circumstantial case, and so I'm going to deny them.
However, Wagner's attorney, Assistant State Attorney Diana Mears, tried to defend him, and that's when Judge Fred Schlott lost it.
I want to be enlightened.
It was a mistake, admittedly, by Michael Wagner.
I know.
He testified to that today.
He caused her to have her driver's license suspended for at least a few months for nothing. So are you going to null process that case?
Perhaps you can get mad at me, Your Honor, but at this point...
Why wouldn't you? Wait a minute. Did you hear the uncontroverted testimony of this officer?
Your Honor.
Then I want you taking him up on perjury.
Your Honor.
Will you take him up for perjury?
He admitted it was a mistake, Your Honor.
No, but he lied. He lied on a sworn
Absolutely
citation.
not, Your Honor, and that is not true.
I'm dismissing. I am dismissing this charge. No. I'm dismissing the charge.
Assistant State Attorney Diana Mears tried to be bossy with the judge. She didn't even have the decency to feel some shame. She was trying to defend the lying officer while seeking to have the innocent woman punished. Fortunately, Judge Schlott stood up for what was right.
This whole case was fishy, and I have no idea how they... You know what?
Their address on file.
You know what?
The state intends to amend
I'm granting.
and proceed on
I'm rescinding the sentence. I'm granting the JOA.
So you're granting it because you don't agree with the state's decision on
I'm
the
granting the
other
JOA in fairness.
In fairness, because you don't like the state's decision today, Your Honor, on the case?
No, you're not. Now that I consider what Officer Wagner testified to and how many times he basically tripped over himself just to arrest this lady with no real probable cause. You're done. Motion, the JOA is granted.
And you're not going to provide a written order on that?
Nope. You want to appeal me? Appeal me.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The case should have never been done. Never.
Thank you for letting us know that.
Isn't it crazy how some lawyers would do anything to get their clients off, even if they're corrupt cops? In the end, Judge Schlott reversed Gonzalez's DUI conviction, and she walked out of that courtroom with 0 charges. If you think this cop was dirty, this next one will blow your mind.
Oh my God, there's dead people. God. There's dead people everywhere, you guys.
7 injured that way. There's so many down there.
On November 21st, 2021, a terrible tragedy occurred during a Christmas parade in Waukesha, leaving 6 people dead, including an 8-year-old boy and several elderly performers. More than 60 others were also injured. The culprit, 36-year-old wannabe rapper Darrell Brooks.
Brooks was arrested a short distance away.
As a key eyewitness, Officer Jeremy Phillips was required to testify before the proceedings could continue.
Do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
My first name is Jeremy, spelled Jeremy. My last name is Phillips, Philipps.
Thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
Thank you.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm employed with the City of Waukesha Police Department.
And how long have you worked in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement for a total of 14 years next month.
All with the City of Waukesha?
I have about 5 months with the City of Dodgeville Police Department in Wisconsin. The rest has been with the City of Waukesha.
All right. Sir, I'd like to direct your attention to the date of November 21 of 2021, please. Were you working that afternoon?
I was working that afternoon, yes.
What was your duty or assignment?
I was assigned a normal patrol beat, squad area 216 with the City of Waukesha on a 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. shift.
Were you aware there was a parade taking place in downtown Waukesha that afternoon?
I was aware that there was a Christmas parade downtown Waukesha.
Were you directly assigned to work the parade?
I was not assigned to work the parade. I received a complaint to respond in emergency fashion, which means light and siren, for subjects fighting in the park with a knife allegedly involved.
Where were you coming from?
I was in the patrol area of East Moreland, roughly at East Main Street at the time, and that's where I was responding from.
Was Main Street shut down at the time for the parade?
Main Street, where I was responding from, was not, no.
Okay.
Officer Phillips testified that he received an emergency call reporting individuals fighting with weapons and was dispatched to the scene.
What do you remember seeing?
As I neared the vicinity of White Rock Avenue at Baxter, directly in front of me appeared to be a unmarked patrol vehicle, silver in color, which was blocking the roadway at White Rock Avenue and Hartwell Avenue. And I believe off to the side, I could also see a marked patrol vehicle.
Could you see any floats or people participating in the parade?
At that particular time, as I arrived in the vicinity, I did not. I just saw the side of a squad car with emergency lights activated. It wasn't until a little while later I saw that there were floats and such on the other side of that patrol vehicle.
The silver colored SUV with lights, red and blue lights activated, do you know whose squad car that was?
That belonged to Sergeant Dave Warner.
Where did you go?
When I arrived to the area, initial dispatch information stated that this alleged fight involving a knife was somewhere in the vicinity of the Shootsy building where the boat ramp was. Based on my training and experience of that vicinity, I know that the boat rental checkout is on the back side of the Shootsy building. So that's the initial area I responded to and where my attention was drawn to.
Following his testimony, a map is displayed so he can point out the locations he visited.
I'd like you to identify for us where you came in to the area.
Well, it's not really blowing up, so.
No, if you want it blown up, we can blow it up from our table. Sorry. We'll zoom in.
If you wouldn't mind, where it says Frame Park in the upper right-hand corner, that would be, looks like the vicinity that I probably responded to. I would need to see a bigger image.
Is that good?
That will suffice.
Okay.
So I responded in a direction on White Rock Avenue, coming this way. This now is Baxter Avenue, which I would have made a right-hand turn onto. And right about in this parking lot area is where the Shootsy building exists. And then there would be a boardwalk and some trails behind that where the boat ramp would be.
Okay. And you drove in that area first, right?
Correct.
What were you looking for?
At that time, I was looking for anybody suspicious that may be involved in a fight, somebody carrying a weapon, somebody that might have been battered and bruised or obviously injured or in need of help.
Okay. Did you see anybody?
I did not.
Did you drive around a little bit?
I drove around in the parking lot of the Shootsy building. There was another officer already on scene who, from my understanding, was already on foot in and around the vicinity of the Shootsy building and advised that they could not find anybody at the Shootsy building.
Okay. Officer Phillips, do you see White Rock School on this map?
I do, yes.
Could you put an X on White Rock School?
White Rock School is this elongated building right here, so we'll draw a large X through it.
Okay. And you said the roadway running parallel to White Rock to the north is Baxter?
Correct.
Okay. And Baxter is the road closest to the river. There's no other roads that run along the river there. Just like a walking path or something, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Another officer's out on foot. What do you do?
At this point, the officer came over the radio and stated he could not find anybody in the vicinity. I was listening and monitoring the radio, and at some point, what I thought was a reserve officer came over and said that they were speaking with a couple of subjects potentially involved. So at that time, I got on the radio and said that I was going to attempt to meet with the caller because I didn't exactly know who this reserve officer was speaking to, how many subjects were involved, if they were actually involved or just a witness to the situation. All of that information was completely unbeknownst to me, so I decided I should probably go meet with a reserve officer and figure out who these subjects are and what the involvement was.
This reserve officer was working as part of the parade, is that right?
He was in the vicinity right at Sergeant Dave Warren.
Officer Phillips says he responded to a distress call and headed straight to the scene. When he got there, he noted that a reserve officer he didn't recognize was already on site. When he tried to speak with the individual who'd made the call, he realized the reserve officer was already talking to the group of people believed to be involved in the incident.
Before I could fully reach that intersection, there was approximately 3 subjects off to my right-hand side on the sidewalk that were yelling, screaming, and waving, like flagging me down. The way that they were doing this, they appeared to be in distress. They appeared that they needed immediate help, and certainly appeared that they needed to speak with somebody in law enforcement.
Can you put a small X on the map in the approximate area where you met up with these 3 individuals, or they were waving at you?
It would have been about halfway between Baxter and where Sergeant Warner's squad was parked. So again, this is going to be an approximation, but I'm going to put that X right about here.
Okay. So I assume you pulled over.
I pulled over, I rolled down my passenger window, and 2 of the subjects started yelling that their friend had been assaulted. So it was right at that point that they started trying to tell me that their friend had been assaulted, that information came over the radio on the primary dispatch channel that something had happened downtown and somebody had been hit. So at that point, my attention started to get a little bit diverted because hearing that on the radio is not something that just happens every day. That perks you up pretty quickly to figure out, that could be a serious injury, that could be more officers needed, something that affects. That took my attention away briefly. As I looked back at the subjects, they started to again say that their friend had been assaulted, so I said, hold on, let me pull over so I can get out, so I can speak with you directly in person.
According to the officer, a group of people flagged him down while he was patrolling, claiming their friend had just been assaulted. Assuming it might not be too serious, he pulled over to hear what they had to say. They told him her boyfriend was the one who hurt her. When Officer Phillips spoke with the woman, she insisted it was only a verbal argument, but the officer saw signs of physical abuse, including bruising and a black eye. He wanted to investigate further, but a radio call pulled him away before he could finish.
The calls on the radio at that point were 1078 after 1078 after 1078.
Okay, what does that mean?
So 1078 in law enforcement jargon is officer needs immediate assistance right now, all available units. As that was being called multiple times, other people were coming on the radio and stating there were subjects down in the street, then it was 10 people down, then it was 15, then it was to 30 or 40. And I had to make a decision at that point, speaking with the subjects, particularly the one who appeared to be involved and the most injured, who was not being cooperative with me, that the greater danger and the clear and present threat that was happening downtown had to draw my attention. I had to leave.
All right. The events that you've described for us so far, are those all captured on your squad video, sir?
Yes.
And at that time, in November of 2021, were you wearing a body camera?
I was not wearing a body camera at that time.
Faced with a choice between a battered woman who won't talk and a fresh call coming through his radio, the officer goes with the new case.
I leave the area. I tell her I'm sorry that I had to go. I went down White Rock, navigated float traffic, went down East Main Street in a westbound direction, and eventually came to East Main Street at Barstow Street, where I exited my patrol vehicle.
To confirm the story, prosecutors play a key piece of recorded evidence.
When you got to Main Street, where'd you go?
When I got to Main Street, as most of you probably just saw in the video, I took a westbound direction all the way down to Barstow. There's still floats in the parade. I think there was a lot of people that didn't exactly know what was happening in front of them. When I got to Barstow and exited my patrol vehicle and you saw me running down towards the center of the street, at that point I was just trying to assist any officer, EMS, civilian individual that was around, and it was just mass chaos, carnage everywhere.
Did you attempt to render aid to some injured individuals?
There was approximately 2 to 3 individuals I can remember talking to directly. They were all members of the band. I don't know which band it was. It was one of the high school bands. They were in the vicinity just west of Barstow on Main. There was a number of them laying in the street, obviously injured. I had face-to-face contact with a few of them laying on the ground. There were parents screaming at me to help their kids. I did what basic measures that I could take as far as emergency life-saving goes. I checked pulses. I asked them to squeeze my finger, asked them what hurt, what they could move. The 2 or 3 I talked to could still move. They could still talk. They could tell me what hurt. There were multiple people standing around them, also providing aid. At that point, some of the radio traffic that I was picking up on, I was gathering that potentially a vehicle had driven through the parade and hit some of these individuals. I contemplated throwing some of these people in my patrol vehicle and trying to get them to a hospital. However, my vehicle just simply isn't equipped to have that kind of space or room to do that. So given the fact that I didn't want to try to move anybody unnecessarily that would have caused further damage to them, especially if somebody's involved in blunt force trauma such as a car crash.
When Officer Phillips got to the scene, he saw multiple people injured. His cruiser can't carry them all, so he waits for paramedics. That's when he learns a car had driven straight through the parade, hitting marchers.
The person I came across was also a band member. She was a female. Her leg was obviously injured. She was being held upright by a couple of adults. And I asked her what was wrong, what was hurting, if there's anything more serious with her as she was being held up. And she said, "Officer, I saw what happened. I saw who did this." And I said, "What can you tell me?" And she said, "A red SUV sped through the parade and did this." She didn't say anything more than that. I said, "Okay." I was like, "Stay with your family, stay with your parents. Somebody will be by with an ambulance to get you shortly."
These 3 injured individuals you spoke to, would you describe them all as being about teenage years?
Objection.
Overruled. He may answer.
This is the grounds, Your Honor.
Overruled. He may answer.
So is he gonna answer to the question to
Yes.
the prosecution table or to the jury? I'm not sure. He's looking at them answering the questions, but they're not answering the question, asking the questions.
You may answer the question, sir.
The 3 individuals that I met with initially had band uniforms on, and it was my understanding that the band from that vicinity right then and there was a high school band, so I would place them all at teenage age range.
Okay, thank you. Were you aware that at some point a person was taken into custody in the 500 block of Elizabeth Street that was related to this incident, sir?
Objection, irrelevant.
Overruled.
I was made aware a little while after my involvement directly in the downtown area, yes.
Did you learn the name of the person who had been taken into custody?
Yes.
What was that name?
I knew from radio traffic at the time that it was a Daryl Brooks. I didn't know the date of birth or middle name or anything at that point.
At some point later, after the chaos had somewhat settled, did you have an opportunity to go back and try and investigate the initial complaint you had taken from Erica Patterson?
After everything was over, Officer Phillips went back to check on the woman from the boyfriend incident. What he found shocked him. She was somehow linked to Brooks.
Specifically, could you find anything linking Miss Patterson to the defendant, Daryl Brooks?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
I did find information through our reporting system and other law enforcement sources to directly link Erica Patterson to Daryl Brooks, yes.
And did that information also directly link Daryl Brooks to a vehicle described as a red SUV?
Yes, it did.
During cross-examination, Daryl Brooks insinuated that Officer Phillips' testimony was influenced by financial compensation, calling his credibility into question.
I noticed, Officer Phillips, you are in uniform this afternoon. Were you scheduled to work today?
Yes.
So it would be fair to say that you would be on duty as of now if you weren't giving testimony in this matter.
I would be on duty right now, yes.
So it will also be fair to ask if it would be fair to say that you giving testimony right now, you're still getting paid for it?
I am currently employed by the City of Waukesha Police Department on a working patrol shift, on a normal shift for myself, yes.
So with that, would it be fair to say that you are getting paid right now as we speak?
Yes, I'm getting paid right now.
By whom?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained. Next question.
Mr. Brooks, if you did anything to further investigate the initial fight that you were dispatched to, do you remember that question?
Yes.
Did you, in fact, relay to detectives who were working on this parade incident the information you had found out about the link between Erica Patterson and Daryl Brooks?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did detectives then follow up?
To my knowledge, it's detectives that followed up on any further investigation regarding the fight itself.
Brooks represented himself in court and was later found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While this officer gave a good account of himself, the next cop won't be so fortunate.
I also want everyone to understand where I'm coming from with regards to this, especially if there's going to be any appellate review of this sentence. I want those judges to know.
In 2013, Michael Dotrow, an ex-Edison police officer, was charged with firebombing his supervisor's home. Officer Dotrow threw a Molotov cocktail at the residence of Captain Mark Anderco, who was asleep inside with his family. Fortunately, no one was injured. It turned out that Officer Dotrow was angry about a recent transfer and a forced psychological evaluation, and wanted to make his superior feel his anger.
The sentence to be imposed in this particular case is because Mr. Dotrow, through his conduct and his admissions, spanning from 1998 to this year, represents the worst that we could possibly expect from someone in our society. Yes, he's caused very specific damage to Captain Anderco and his family, to Ms. Zog, to Ms. Dotrow, to his own parents, to his families, to his brothers. But what he's really done, and what we're going to be left with after he's walking out the door to spend the next third of his life in prison, is allow people a basis to say that our system of justice has no integrity. How could it, when we've allowed this particular individual like him, here in Middlesex County, here in Edison, to do the things that he's done, similar to what we see on the news every day from other parts of the country. Because of what this individual has done, because of him and people like him, victims are afraid to come forward to be part of the criminal justice system and get the relief that they're entitled to from being victimized, because they have no faith in it, because they don't know who to trust.
Officer Dotro was sentenced to 20 years behind bars, with the possibility of parole after serving 17 years. But before announcing the verdict, the judge explained why the sentence was so serious. Even though Officer Dotro used to be a cop, the judge made it clear that the law is the law, and victims deserve to feel safe and believe in justice again.
Even more importantly, we have other individuals every day who put on a badge which represents honor, service, and integrity. Without question, go out there every day, leave their family behind to protect an entire community with hopes that they can make it through the day, through the end of their shift, so that they can go back home to their family and lead a normal human being life, because the life of a police officer is not a normal human being life.
Officer Dotro behaved in a manner unworthy of their badge, and it's right that he got what he deserved. If you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you'll like the next one on your screen.